One thing that I oddly enough enjoy doing in my free time is reading up on all of the things that people think will happen to you when you start eating things like meat, fish, fattier foods, healthy oils, butters, cheeses, things like that. Real food. When you stop eating things like high sugar processed foods, totally artificial ingredients, completely fake colorants, and an entire list of ingredients that you can never pronounce, people freak out and assume that you're going to die. That doesn't make sense to me. Today we are going into some of those myths to see what people really think when you start eating a carnivore, meat-based, animal product-based diet. Let's get started. One thing I absolutely don't understand is the idea that all of these modern factory-made foods can replace what we've been eating for thousands of years. I don't know what people with that mindset think that people like cavemen eat, but I'm almost positive that the cavemen of later days did not have factories to mass manufacture fake food. I'm also almost positive that there were very few cavemen who had things like diabetes, obesity, heart disease, joints that eventually just crap out and give up on you, mental health conditions. I've read about cavemen, and nowhere in that book, or all of the books that I've read, did they go into details about the insulin that all of these cavemen had to take because they were eating so much moose. Now they have to be on artificial insulin, probably because that didn't actually happen. Somehow we've got it in our head that the way we eat today is so much better than how we used to eat, which was just whole foods that you find in nature. But you know, I'm probably wrong. You should probably eat Fruit Loops and enriched flour. I mean, that's what my doctor told me to do. She said I needed to eat more bread. Yeah. Anyways, my first carnivore myth is quite funny, I believe. A number of websites stated that if you do carnivore, you will get scurvy like a pirate. And if you don't exactly know what scurvy is, it's gross. Scurvy is a disease caused by a deficiency in vitamin C, characterized by swollen, bleeding gums, and the reopening of previously healed wounds. Now, if you ask me, that actually sounds a lot like type 2 diabetes, which no one has if they only eat whole foods, less sugar. But this was the main myth that I came across, is that you're going to get scurvy, your gums are going to basically explode, they're going to be bleeding, swollen, and any sort of wound that you had previously, it's gonna reopen up and you're not gonna be able to heal yourself, and eventually you'll probably just die of a severe infection. Wait, isn't that what diabetes, isn't that how diabetes works? You get an infection and you can't heal it because your body has no ability whatsoever to function anymore. So when you have a wound, it opens, it spreads, the infection is quickly filling your body. That's why they have to chop off one of your limbs. Sounds like a real good ad for bread. On the contrary, there are actually a lot of animal products, animal foods that are high in vitamin C. Primarily fish, clams, trout, crab. Spam is also a very high source of vitamin C. I know spam is processed, but it is still a meat. I personally enjoy it. I think it tastes amazing. And to get a little bit extra vitamin C in my diet, I'll eat some spam. The best sources are organ meat, liver, brain. Eat them up. I will say, I have eaten liver. I have eaten organ meats. It's nasty, but it's extremely beneficial in your diet, and I would highly recommend it. This next myth is a myth that goes along with the diseases that you're going to develop from eating real food. The disease rickets was very common among the websites that I was looking at. Rickets is a weakening of the bones due to a lack of vitamin D. This one was one I didn't understand at all. I would imagine most people who are carnivore are participating in a rather healthy lifestyle. A healthy lifestyle does not mean you stay inside 24/7 and never go outside. Why does that matter? Well, vitamin D is not only in food. We may not remember this, but vitamin D is actually in the sun. And if you go outside, stop putting on layers and layers of sunscreen, absorb some vitamin D, problem solved. Seems like a rather easy solution to me. Now let's say you live somewhere that's like Antarctic and it's freezing and cloudy most of the time. You can still find vitamin D in whole foods, not just your fortified cereals. Vitamin D is very prevalent in red meat as well as those organ and liver meats. Dairy is also a fairly decent source of vitamin D. You'll be best off with raw butters and raw milks. Those will have your most unadulterated form of vitamin D, most highly absorbable form of vitamin D. Dairy is also obviously a very good source of calcium, which will aid in strengthening your bones. So this myth, false. Scurvy, false. This one I thought was kind of comical, probably because I'm immature. Most people said that when you start a carnivore diet, you will be constipated forever. You will never go to the bathroom ever again, ever, which will result in death because at some point you will become septic and you will die. You cannot be constipated for your whole life and live. This one I thought was funny because it goes back to the cavemen. Like, do we think cavemen went to the herbal nutrition store and bought their best, most expensive probiotic? No. Somehow we've got it into our brain that our body with whole natural foods can't function. I don't know how we've allowed ourselves to be so mentally manipulated so that we think this is true. Our body is digesting things all the time. And once it's gone through our stomach, there's no other place for it to go besides, well, unless you're throwing up every single thing that you've eaten, eventually you're gonna go to the bathroom. You will have bowel movements. Fiber is not mandatory. The only thing that fiber does is bulk up what's already there. You can't digest most fibers, so when you eat it, it passes through and it bulks up your poo. So if you're a fan of having enormous bowel movements, then yes, you probably need to eat some kale. But if you're not oddly obsessed with a massive poop, then you'll be okay just eating your meat. Fiber is not the key to your digestion working. That myth is false, completely false. Now this one was so backward that it almost just pissed me off. And this myth says that you will get fat and you will get diabetes. Whoever thought this myth was true and then whoever followed up to support this myth has no idea how the body works and has no idea how foods are affecting their body. Diabetes is a result of a continuous spiking of your insulin that results in insulin resistance. When you're eating meat, your insulin is not getting spiked. Your blood sugar is not going up and down like a psychopath. Your blood sugar is pretty consistent. Type 2 diabetes is not the result of level insulin, level blood sugar. Whoever wrote that is one of those people that just have an issue with carnivore diet and they're trying to get anyone to believe whatever they will just simply because that's what they read. And a lot of people aren't going to do research on this, so a lot of people will believe that. However, that myth is completely false. My last myth is more on the financial side than the health side. So most people excuse their horrible eating habits because they can't afford to eat healthy. So they have to buy all this other stuff. Even if you don't develop a slew of health effects because of your high carb processed diet, carnivore is still much cheaper than your average typical American diet. Now I will say, most of the time when I am going into the meat section, doing my grocery shopping, I look for manager specials where I can get a ribeye for $8. I can get that entire roast, $8. You're not gonna get cheaper than that, and you're also not gonna get the nutrition that is found in meat. My grocery bill is typically around $200 to $300 per month. Carnivore is much less expensive than what you're already doing. It also helps that 85% of the grocery store no longer applies to you when you're doing carnivore. You're not using much for those middle aisles. Maybe some seasoning and some salt, that's about it. You go to the grocery store, you're all around the outer aisles. There's only so much that you can pile in. Whereas the middle aisles, impulse buying really takes over, and suddenly you've spent $300 on groceries on stuff you didn't need, didn't plan on buying, and have no nutritional value whatsoever. So if you're trying to tell yourself, poor me, I'm so poor, I can't afford carnivore, it's not true. You're just making up excuses. Carnivore is much cheaper than whatever you're doing now, and the only reason that you're not doing it is because you don't want to. So just say that. If you don't want to, you don't want to. It's whatever. But don't make up all these excuses like, I'm gonna get diabetes, I'm gonna get scurvy, I can't afford it, rickets, I'm gonna get fat. All of those myths are false. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. I absolutely loved doing the research for this video. It was very funny to see what people truly believe will happen when you eat a diet that's full of whole unprocessed foods. I don't know exactly how our mindset got to this point, but that's where we are. I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope this video has helped you. Please like and subscribe. It helps me grow so much so that I can continue providing you with this content. And I will see y'all next time. Bye!